Mr. Rubin, thank you for talking to Radio Free Europe here in Pristina. Kosovo is actually just a transit on this trip of yours. You were in Montenegro yesterday, you're heading to North Macedonia. What brings you back to the Western Balkans?
Well, Secretary Blinken has asked me to take on a new challenge the world faces. Disinformation and information manipulation is a new discipline, a new threat to the world. And I am in charge of the Global Engagement Center. I'm called a special envoy. And what we are trying to do here is go after the disinformation purveyors themselves, try to deal with this problem more root and branch and pull it out rather than waiting for the lies to be told about the United States, about the West, that have been, purveyed by portals in this part of the world. I think it's not a secret that in North Macedonia and in Montenegro, there are outlets that repeat Russian lies, Russian disinformation, saying things like there are biological weapons in Ukraine when this is not true and has been rejected as an even idea by the Biological Weapons Convention in Geneva, saying things that the United States wanted this war or sees this war as a money-making operation. All these flat-out disinformation lies, unfortunately, in the Western Balkans are too prominent and too pervasive. So I've come here to talk to the governments that can do something about it. I recognize that this is a difficult problem and it's not an easy problem, and we're not perfect in the United States either. But we need to develop an operational code of conduct, if you will, a way of doing business that everyone shares legally, institutionally, create structures in each of the governments. So I talked to the Montenegrin government about that, not the current government, because there really isn't one, but about to the future leaders. And I was very encouraged that they all recognize this problem, and we're going to work with them as partners to try to figure out how to at least stop the growth of this disinformation and begin to get a grip on it.
What do you expect them to do? How to stop the disinformation?
Well, it's not. First of all, it's not easy. We have to recognize that there is freedom of the press, and we want freedom of the press. But if you have Chinese government accounts in social media, they should be labeled as Chinese government accounts. People shouldn't think this is just your average Chinese person saying something, or your average person. They should know it's a government account. That's an example. We should try to ensure that foreign ownership of media properties is transparent. That's an example of something we should do. And to the extent that regulations and rules can be put in place so that if an outlet is simply duplicating a Russian lie, that they can't claim to be journalists, that it's something else. It's called disinformation, and we should try to put a stop to it.
Is some country in Western Balkans more vulnerable to Russian and Chinese disinformation than others?
Well, I think the whole region is vulnerable in general to the problem, because the media spreads widely in the region from many different places. Obviously, a big chunk of it comes out of Serbia, and this is a major problem that needs to be dealt with. But other governments in Montenegro, in North Macedonia, need to prevent or try to prevent these lies from being spread by using whatever tools they can. We'd like to see them set up government entities that can begin to examine and analyze this problem so that we can try to put a stop to it.
You won't be traveling to Serbia this time, however.
I will not be traveling to Serbia on this occasion. Look, I'm a realist. I know that given my past, I'm probably not the best diplomat to meet with Serbian government officials. I'm familiar with the realities of the region. On the other hand, we have an opportunity now, and we can talk about that in a minute, where Serbia and Kosovo can begin to normalize their relations, and we can put some of these past grievances behind.
How do you comment on the opening of Russia Today in Serbia late last year and its role in spreading disinformation?
We would not like to see Russia Today or Russian media outlets anywhere in the world. We'd like them shut down. They've been shut down in much of the European community. I think governments that want to be part of Europe need to understand that Europe has taken a brave and forceful stand against Russia's invasion of Ukraine. This is rule number one of the international system, that thou shalt not invade thy neighbor. And Russia has broken that rule, and governments that want to be part of Europe should understand that if they align themselves with Russia, they put at risk their relations with Europe.
Mr. Rubin, as we are speaking, international media are reporting about the leak of intel, sensitive intel documents. How risky is this to national security of the United States? Do we know and how it happened?
Well, this is one of those questions where, as a spokesman for the U.S. government, I need to speak very carefully. And all I can really tell you about that is that it's a matter for the Department of Defense to discuss. But more importantly, I think it's now a matter for the Department of Justice to investigate this information.
One more question on disinformation. Who has the advantage? The West debunking the disinformation or the Russian propaganda at this point? You once said that the West has been slow to respond to China's emergence in the information space.
I think if one is going to be realistic, and I'm a realist, the United States, the West, has been slow to realize the dangers from Russian and Chinese disinformation and information manipulation. They've been spending billions and billions of dollars on this project in the information domain for many, many years. And I think we need to step up our game. Secretary Blinken asked me to take this job because he wants the United States to step up its game. Secretary Blinken believes that this is a real and significant threat to the world, and has pointed out that this happens every day all over the world. And that's why he's been so supportive of the efforts I'm making here in the Balkans to try to get at the Russian disinformation problem earlier, so that we're not just responding, but trying to put a stop to it.
How much is then the fake news and disinformation affecting certain processes in Western Balkans, like a dialogue between Kosovo and Serbia?
I am sure that the information problem has been at the root of problems in this part of the world for a long, long time. I first became aware of this whole idea of disinformation back in the 90s when I heard and watched and saw government-sponsored news about different ethnic groups which were designed to enrage each other, designed to develop hatreds between each other, and we saw the consequences of that in the terrible wars of this part of the world. So there are those who don't want to see normalized relations between the various countries of the Western Balkans. There are those who don't want to see the Western Balkan countries become part of the European Union and become normal participants in European institutions. Certainly that's not something that Kremlin foreign policy is designed to achieve. It's designed to achieve the opposite. So I would urge anyone in this part of the world who wants to see a future for their children and see a brighter future for their own country is to work together as a society to begin to put a stop to the lies that only generate hatred between communities.
I'll stick to dialogue a bit more. Kosovo and Serbia have recently agreed upon an agreement on the path to normalization, which doesn't foresee mutual recognition. Can there be normalization of relations between Kosovo and Serbia without official recognition?
Well, let me just say, as an American speaking for the United States, we want to see mutual recognition. We believe that is the right course of action. However, as a realist, as a diplomat, I want to say that I'm encouraged that the process the European Union has developed has the opportunity to normalize relations between Serbia and Kosovo, to allow Kosovo to be part of the European Union, to allow Kosovo to be part of NATO, to permit Kosovo to be part of the Council of Europe. These would be huge steps forward for this country that I have a special feeling for and a special fondness for, and it may not achieve all of the objectives that the United States might want or the Kosovo people might want. But if we can get the symbols of Kosovo sovereignty recognized in that sense, if you can get normal relations and exchange of embassies and all the steps necessary to make countries treat each other normally, and if Serbia no longer blocks or is able to block Kosovo from being part of NATO, from being part of the European Union and being part of the European institutions, then I think the Kosovo people will have achieved something much more than they can hope for and hoped for a long time. So I would urge people to look, emphasize the positive. It's not perfect. In this business, we can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And I think it will be good news for the people of Kosovo if their country is part of Europe in an institutional sense, part of NATO, part of Western institutions, even if the perfect outcome of recognition isn't achieved.
Actually, the membership of Kosovo to international organizations is something that Aleksandar Vučić, the president of Serbia, has said that he wants to implement, he wants support. After the agreement was reached, that's what he said. Also, he in a way backed the Serbian list in northern Kosovo not to take part in Kosovo elections for 4 municipalities in the north. He said that, warned that Kurti, Kosovo's prime minister, will rule the north and the people out there will be under occupation. How is this contributing to normalization?
I'm going to avoid getting into some of these details because unlike the old days when I studied this region very carefully and worked on some of the issues very closely, I'm not familiar with all the statements you made. However, I believe it is extremely important if the leaders of Serbia want to see their country part of Europe, part of the European Union, part of NATO, have the opportunity to be a better future for their people, that they should get a little bit used to the idea that they will not get all the things that they want, and they should probably be doing more to build support for an agreement that is really not between Kosovo and Serbia. The technicalities of this are kind of complicated, but these are agreements that would be between Kosovo and the European Union and Serbia and the European Union. And Serbia would not be in a position to block Kosovo's membership in the European Union. That will be up to the European Union countries. And the United States will be working with the European Union leadership to achieve a result that if Kosovo does and follows through on the commitments in this document, that the European Union will decide to bring Kosovo in, regardless of whether Serbia would prefer it or not.
Okay, I'll move to another topic. Mr. Rubin, people in Kosovo know you from your engagement during the war in Kosovo. How did you, at that time, view the role of KLA?
Well, the United States position on the KLA evolved. You know, in the early days, before I knew much about it, we had condemned terrorist activities that had been conducted by Albanian groups. But as the peace process evolved, the KLA became essential to that peace process. And it was Hashim Thaçi at the Rambouillet talks who made the courageous decision to agree to the Rambouillet Accords. And it was that decision that allowed NATO to support the Kosovo Albanians. Had that decision not been made, I don't think we'd be sitting so happily and freely in a modern European city here in Pristina. Many, many Albanians would have died. So the KLA played a crucial role in the accords that were signed by their leaders, and in following through on demilitarization as promised by them. And as they told me at the time, that if we followed through on our promises to use military power on their behalf, they followed through on their promises. And they did follow through on their promises to demilitarize, and have been working closely with our with KFOR and with the official representatives of the United States here for many, many years. And I think it's fair to say that that relationship was one that enabled the Albanians to stave off what would have been a massive slaughter in this part of the world. And so I have fond memories of working with their leaders. That doesn't mean that every single thing that happened in that time of war is something I would support. Of course, there were things done, but let's be clear, the threat came from the Serbian military forces. The threat of mass slaughter came from the Serbian military forces. And yes, the KLA probably had issues that were examined and looked at that were hardly perfect, but I don't think we should rewrite history on this subject.
Now Hashim Thaçi and other KLA founders are being accused of being members of joint criminal enterprise with a common purpose to gain and exercise control all over Kosovo with the use of different means. What is your comment on that?
I just have no comment on that.
Mr. Rubin, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you.